And welcome to this quiz on HSRP. So glad you're here. If you're here for the live event, awesome. It's good to meet you. Good to see you. And if you are watching the recorded version of this, please enjoy it. The entire playlist is here on YouTube for your benefit. It is free of charge and very, very useful. So without further ado, let's take a look at this quiz. Good luck, everybody. This Kahoot is on hot standby router protocol to provide fault tolerance, a fault-tolerant default gateway for our users. And here's the first question of 13. With HSRP, which IP address is used for the client's default gateway? With HSRP, which IP is used for the client's default gateway? It's the HSRP virtual IP address. And right, I had this come up a little bit slow, but here it is. This let's take a moment. This is going to help with almost every other question we have coming up. So a little bit of tutoring here is going to be amazing for us. So this is the command show standby, and I limit it to just one interface, but you can just do show standby. It'll show all the standby groups that are participating. This is the virtual IP address right here. And so the clients would point to that as their default gateway. Now, most effectively, we'd probably use DHCP, hand out the default gateway, and what we do is we'd hand out this IP address for our clients to use as the default gateway, and that's what's giving us fault tolerance. Also in this output, it shows us that this state is standby, which means that this router interface is the standby. It's not the active router. There's one active, one standby, and anybody else who's part of that group is backing those guys up. So this is the standby router. Here is the virtual MAC address that's being used for version 1 of HSRP. Version 2 has a different MAC address. The last letter here, the A, that's A in hex, which really represents 10. This is group 10. Let's see what else is here that's important. This shows us that preemption is enabled. What that means is that if this router shows up one day for work on this network, the one that gig 00.10 is connected to, and it sees that somebody else has a priority of 104, and this router on this interface has a priority of 106, preempt says, take it over, baby, do a coup. You're going to send a coup message and say, hey, my priority is better. I need to go ahead and take over the active role. And that's what preempt does. It's not courteous. Without preemption enabled, if this router joins and it has a higher priority than somebody else who's already active, it says, no, I'm not going to take your spot. You just go ahead and do that. You be you. And then this is also showing us the active router is at this IP address, and the active router has a priority of 108, while we have a priority of 106, and that's why that device is active. He's got a higher priority. All right, let me clear that off. And as I mentioned, that's points. That's points in the bag coming up. That short tutorial there on reading this output, if you picked up any parts of that, it's going to help you as we continue. It's also going to help you in troubleshooting HSRP when you get to that point in your career where you're looking at it and need to troubleshoot it. Or if you're taking certification and they ask you something about HSRP, you're going to be a lot better off. It's a win. Nimble Giraffe, first place. All right, that's only our first question. Here's question 2 of 13. It is multiple select. I'm looking for 2 answers based on this output. Which 2 answers are true? All right, it's a stepping stone. I love this. Check it out. Burp, 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 burp. And that's interesting. Let's take a look at the output and discuss it for a moment. This is a show run for this interface. It is a sub-interface. This 10 here, encapsulation .1Q10, means that this sub-interface is supporting VLAN 10. So if that's one of our answers, that's true. We're supporting VLAN 10. We also happen to have an HSRP group for 10, which is beside the point. You can use any number you want for standby. It doesn't have to match the VLAN number, but the sub-interface matches, the VLAN itself, the VLAN tag on the trunk matches, and this matches. But they don't. None of those 3 don't have to match. We could use sub-interface 12. We could use HSRP group 3, and this could have been supporting the 10 VLAN. So that's definitely one of them. And the priority is 105, so that's not the default. The default is 100, so we're not using a default priority. Preemption is enabled. That means if this router interface joins an HSRP network, if its priority is higher than the current active router, it's just going to go ahead and take over. It's going to say, I want to be active. That's it. And I think that's all the questions there. Let me clear that off. HSRP is fun. And once you get HSRP under your belt, there's also VRRP, open standard, and there's also a first hop redundancy protocol that can do load balancing and proportional load balancing, which is amazing. That's GLBP, Gateway Load Balancing Protocol. But HSRP does not load balance, by the way, with just one group. If you got one group and you have one active, one standby router, the active router is doing all the work, and the standby router for that one group is doing nothing except making sure that the active is not dead. And here's question 3 of 13. It's multiple select. With these 3 HSRP routers, they're all supporting the same subnet. If the active router fails, the one who's the active role, what happens? All right, another stepping stone. These are totally just based on your feedback. So R20 will be made active, R3 will be made standby. If you haven't studied HSRP, it's like, I don't know, it's a couple of these answers, I think. Let's take a look at the media and talk about what happens. It's first of all, I intentionally chopped off the top part of these. The command that was issued here is show standby. That's how you see who's the primary and secondary, or who's the active and standby device. So if we look at the output, this is 3 routers. They're all participating in the same standby group. And let's see who's active. It says active router is 10.10.0.55. If R20 was the active router, it would say local. So R20 is not the active. And R3 says active router is 10.10.0.55. At least they agree. So R3 is not the active. If we go down to R10, here it says active router is local. It's me. So we can just think of R10 is the active HSRP router. And what that means is that if a client did a ARP request for the virtual IP, R10 would be responding to that with the layer 2 address, the ones associated with the virtual IP address. And then as a result, once the client has the virtual IP addresses, layer 2 address via ARP, it would then forward that frame, and then the switch would lead it here to R10, who would be the active router. Okay, so the question says, what happens if the active router fails? Okay, so R10 fails. What's going to happen? Well, the guy who's currently standby is going to be the new active router. So let's find, there we go, right here. So here it says standby router is local. That means R20 is the standby. And if he stops seeing those hello messages in that same VLAN that is being supported by these 3 routers, he's going to say, whoa, I need to go ahead and become the active router. And it'll flip its roles. It'll change from standby and it'll go to active. So R20 will now be active. And what about this guy? What is he? Look at this. Active router is somebody else. The standby router is somebody else. You know what this guy is? He's in a state called listen. Listen. Hey. So if we have like 3 routers, which we do here, and they're all tied to the same network, one's going to be active, one's going to be standby, and the other is going to listen. He's just listening to see whether or not there's an active and a standby present, and he is not, literally, just like this output shows, he's not going to be standby. He's going to be just there. So in HSRP, we're going to have exactly 1 active per group, and we're going to have exactly 1 standby. But I'll tell you what, and I didn't actually realize this till yesterday when I labbed this up. I just thought they would, I wasn't paying attention, I guess. I thought they would all be standbys. But the reality is there's 1 active, 1 standby, and there's any other ones are just backups. So you could say there's 1 active device for HSRP, and then there's a group of more that can provide the backup support for it. But in reality, it's just 1 standby, and then the other devices that aren't active and they're not standby, they are what this guy is, which is listen, a state called listen. So state, either state active, state standby, or state listen. Those are the 3 states that we would expect to see. All right, so this guy would then change from listen, and he would go to standby because there's no other devices on the network. And that's what would happen. So R3 would go to standby, R20 would go to active, and hopefully that's one of the some of the answers that were presented. So R20 will be made active and R3 will be made standby. Yeah, yay! All right, moving on. Hey, it's good to have everybody. Super Falcon on the top of the heap, 3,413 points. My gratitude for everybody who's spending a few minutes with us today. There's like 183 people online. I think there's probably 70 or 80 people who are playing the game. And whichever way you want to roll, it's all good. Glad you're here. Question 4 of 13. How do you see who are the HSRP active and standby routers? All right. Boop, 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 boop. 68 of you nailed it. Show standby is the command. Now you can add on to that. You can say show standby for an interface. You can do show standby, include the group information, but show standby just shows you all interfaces, all groups that are participating in HSRP. All right, here we go. Moving on. Question 5 of 13, multiple select. Based on this output, which of the following are true regarding HSRP? All right, red and green. Based on this output, what is true regarding HSRP using a non-default priority and using a default virtual MAC address? What? Let's see here real quick. Getting my pen out. So the priority right here, it says the priority is 108, and it says configured even. So the default priority is 100. Anything other than 100 is going to be not using the default. And it's using, let's see here. Oh, look at this. Who made this? It was probably me. This is showing the virtual MAC address. And this virtual MAC address, which is associated with the virtual IP address, that's going to be supported by whoever's active. That is the default MAC address for version 2. Oh, it says right here, right there, for version 2. So the MAC address 00000C9F is version 2. The other version 1 had a different one. But check this out at the end. See that 14? Let's talk about what that is. Those last two characters are in hexadecimal. And so that's the 16 position and the 1s position. And this says there's one 16 and 4 1s. So 16 plus 4 is 20. That happens, not accidentally, to match the group number. And HSRP does that with version 1 and version 2. They use the last couple characters there in hex to represent the decimal group number. Great work. Let's click on next and continue on. Super Falcon, 5,700 points, followed by Excited Yak, Fabulous Wolf, Aquatic Buffalo, and Diplomat Turtle. No wonder turtles are so accepted. Very diplomatic. All right, glad everybody's here. Here's question 6. It is multiple select. What is true about HSRP based on this output? What are we looking at, Keith? This is the MAC address table on a switch. Something's connected off of gig 0/1. All right, what is true about HSRP based on the output? Wow, look at that. Using a default MAC address, using version 2. Let's click on Show Media, and wow. So that is the default MAC address for version 2 that the switch has learned on gig 01. And wow, great work. Using default MAC address, using version 2. All right, that was a bunch of inference. I appreciate you guys nailing it. Well, these are going to get easier as we go along. We've already seen our hardest questions. What is true about HSRP on the router named R20 that we're looking at right here? Yeah, they're all true. I do that. I probably do that once a quiz. In the Cisco exam, you're not likely to see, choose all that apply and it's everything. But this one is everything. Preempt is enabled, has a non-default priority, using version 1, acting as a standby. If we look at the show media, all that is decoded from this. So active router or standby router is local. Yeah, so I think we've covered all those pieces. Fantastic job. I'm super happy. All right, we are more than halfway done, I think. Let's go ahead and, yeah, we are. Here's question number 8. Multiple select. What is true regarding this packet capture? What? What are you doing to us, Keith? What are you doing? Well, this is a packet capture that involves some HSRP. I'm looking for what's true based on the 4 choices. You've got this. You've got this. Boom, 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 boom. Wow, that's, you know what? I gotta say something here. I am so pleased about the amazing quantity of spot on answers. So it's great. Congratulations. Awesome, awesome, awesome. That means you're aware of HSRP, you're learning more about HSRP, and you're applying that knowledge to this. So let's take a look at the answers or the packet capture. And let me just share with you what I know about this packet capture. I made this packet capture yesterday. And here are a few things that we can determine from this packet capture. The first thing is, when you look at a lot of output like this, is just relax. Like, I know there's a lot of stuff going on here, but the question isn't asking us like, hey, can you determine, what the index number is for this IP packet? Like, just kind of take a breath and take a look at it. Let's look at it from the bottom up. So we know it's Ethernet, fantastic. There's the source and destination addresses, which is it's going off to a multicast address. I cut that off a little bit. And then here it's showing us for the 802.1q tag, we have a VLAN ID of 10. So on this frame, as it was captured, was over a trunk link, and it was identified the 802.1q tag as 10, meaning this frame is 4, belongs to, and is associated with VLAN 10. And then the source address at layer 3 is 10.10.03, which is one of our routers, and the destination address is 24.0.0.2. Now, that multicast address is local, meaning if you see zeros here, 00, that means this multicast packet is not intended to be routed anywhere. And that's why we have like multicast for OSPF is 5 and 6, and we have multicast addresses for other protocols as well, like RIP and EIGRP and so forth. So that is local, and this is the well-known multicast address used for version 1 of HSRP. All right, that happens to be the case. Here's the ports. It's using 1985. What a great year that was. This is saying that the priority is 111, so that's a non-default priority. There's the group. That's the HSRP group. So up here, this 10 up here is all about the, literally the VLAN we're supporting, and this is all about the HSRP group number, which is, as long as all the devices agree on the group number, you could use 1 or 2 or 5 or 6 or even 0. You don't want to use a group number, and it would use 0 by default. Okay, and then there's the virtual IP being supported by HSRP. All right, a lot of fun stuff in there. Oh, also check this out. It's a coup message right there. Opcode coup. What that means is that somebody came online. And I don't mean just somebody. I'm talking about this guy with this source address. Where is he? Where's layer 3? Here it is. The source address of 10.10.0.3. He came online, had a higher priority number than what he saw the existing active router was, and he sent in a little coup message saying, hey, my priority is way better than yours. I think I should take over this. And no one's going to compete with that. If somebody has preempt set, they have a higher priority, and they ask for it with a coup message, you're going to go ahead and hand it over. Aquatic Buffalo with 12,175, followed by Diligent Badger, Super Falcon, Rapid Crane, and Majestic Sphinx. But look at this. Mountain Lark is making a comeback with 3 in a row. No pressure, but man, the competition is hot. Let's go. Multiple select. Choose at least 2 answers, maybe more. What does this packet capture include? What? Another packet capture. Well, Keith, I'm going to leverage what you just said, and I'm going to apply it here. All right, it's green and blue. It's HSRP version 1. How do you know that? Well, based on the multicast address that was shown. That'd be one way. Let's click on Show Media. So 224.0.0.2. Oh, that's a bad color. Let me get rid of that. Let me go for this one. So 24.0.0.2 is the one we looked at in the previous packet capture, and that's for version 1. And anybody want to guess what 102 is? Version 2. Yeah, so that's the different multicast address. So they use different multicast addresses, and the differences between version 1 and version 2 is support for IGMP, and also, what else does it support that's different? Oh, then behind the scenes, they use a different default layer 2 virtual address, MAC address, for the standby group. Those are the biggest differences that I recall. Question 10 of 13. 2 or more answers are being looked for here. What is true about HSRP based on this output? This is, again, is the MAC address table on a switch looking at a specific VLAN and a specific port. I just wanted to make it fit on the screen, so that's what I did. Okay, using VLAN 10, using Group 10, version 1, and wow, great work. Let's just take a quick peek as a reinforcement of that. So, I mean, right up here I said VLAN 10, right here it's showing VLAN 10, so VLAN 10 support's in use. Based on this MAC address, that's version 1, and based on these last 2 characters, A, if we are going to count in decimal, it'd be like this: 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh, what do? We carry the 1. That's what they taught me in grade school. And we continue 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. We use a base 10, and that's because we have 0 through 9, which is 10 different numbers that we can use for base 10. However, hexadecimal is base 16. That means there's 16 different combinations. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So that's 10 of them. And then we start counting, or we stick to the alphabet. A, B, C, D, E, F. That's the equivalent. And then once we get to F, we then carry the 1 and start again. So if we had a number like A right there, that is just a 10. That represents the HSRP group that automatically got mapped over. So if we had a number like 14 in hex, that would mean we have a 16 plus 4 1s, that'd be 20. So just be aware, sometimes if you're looking at how it's represented, the MAC address is always going to be 12 hexadecimal characters. So the MAC address would always be in hex, and if it's anything higher than a 9, you'd want to get out, just be aware of what that value represents. Ooh, who's in top? Dandy Newt, 15,266 points. We are coming down the home stretch. R10 reboots. And then you give it a few minutes to fully initialize. What happens after R10 comes back online? This is also assuming everything's converged, everything's back to, how it should be. The router's not still booting up, it's fully booted and had a few seconds to breathe. What is expected to happen? All right, R10 reboots. What happens after R10 comes back online? The majority of you nailed it. 84 of us said will be active for group 10. And let's take a quick look at that and make sure we're all comfortable with why. So this is before the reboot, and this guy is the active router. And there's a standby, which has a priority of 106, but our priority is 108, which is very likely why we are the active router, and preemption is enabled. So if this guy rebooted, regarding this HSRP group that's being supported on this interface, if this guy rebooted and had a few seconds to breathe and just get back to normal, because preemption is enabled and it's higher than the current standby, who would be active actually while we rebooted, but once we come back, we'll do our coup, we'll go ahead and get the active role again. So R10, in my opinion, would be active again. All right, not just my opinion, but that's literally what would happen. All right, I think we have 1 or 2 more. Oh, we're getting so close. Here we go. 2 more. 12 of 13, multiple select. What is true regarding a functioning HSRP group that has 3 routers that are configured to support that group? Oh my gosh. May I take just a moment and tell everybody how proud I am of us as a group. Oh my gosh. Look at that. 101, 99, 98, all on the right answer. I'm so tickled. I'm so tickled. Way to go. Way to crush it. One will be active, one will be standby, and one will be in listen. You could also say that the one in standby and the one in listen state are there to back up the active in case something happens. But literally there's a pecking order as far as priority and preempt and so forth. All right. Wow. I think we have one last question, and then we'll I'll take a few questions, and then Donald Robb on the Discord server is going to be in the above CCNA room chatting about some additional on-box or off-box automation. I need to look at my notes again, but it's going to be great. All right. All right, Dandy Newt. No pressure, but you're in first place. And this last question, and how quickly we answer it and answer it correctly, could keep you there, or it could be an open game for anybody who's here in the top 15 or 20, still possible. All right, here's the last question. R10 and R20, they boot at the same time. What is true for group 20 after both of these routers come back up? All right. Yep. You may say, why is R10 going to be active? So let's compare these real quick, and then we'll take some questions. I'm looking at the side-by-side output of a show running for the interfaces. So they're both using the same interface, which they don't have to be, but they are. They're both supporting VLAN 20 on that sub interface. One has an IP address of 250, 10.20.0.250. The other has a 10.20.0.20. That's a difference. So I'll put that in a different color. So that's a difference there. I mean, we have to have unique IP addresses. I get that. They're both using version 2. That means they can actually function together. They're both supporting the same virtual IP address, which also would be expected. Oh, they have the same priority. Oh, okay. So, and they both have preempt enabled. Okay, so it boils down to this. If everything else is equal, and they are both brought up at the same time, the one with the higher IP address is going to be active. Even if we change addresses, though, if we have, let's say, 2 or 3 devices that are already up, and somebody else comes in, they have the same priority, and preempt is enabled, they're not going to take over because they have a newer, higher IP address. But if they're booted at the same time, they both come up, and they both have the same priority, and they have to decide who's going to be active. The one that has the highest IP address, again, both coming up at the same time, the one that has the highest IP address is going to win that decision. And that's why that answer is correct. All right, 51. All right, let's see how we did. And here is the podium. A moment of silence. All right, congratulations, Dandy Newt. You did it. Here are our toughest questions from this quiz today. And there was 5, so it was like 12 or 13 questions. And here are our 5 toughest ones. What is true about HSRP based on this output? But here's the deal. If you and I were, and let's imagine we took this whole group, all of us, and we took this quiz again, even if I rewrote the questions and, so they weren't the same answers, but I mixed them all up, we would do amazing now, because we know about the MAC addresses that are different, the multicast addresses that are different, who wins if they both come up at the same time, what happens if the active goes away, the standby takes over. Yeah, we do great. So these are the toughest questions, but I have reason to believe if we did it again, these wouldn't be a problem at all for us. All right, so let's do this. Oh yeah, let me just say goodbye to everybody who's watching the recorded version of this. If you're watching the recorded version, that's it. Join us every Sunday, 11 a.m. I had to think about that. Every Sunday, 11 a.m. Pacific time. Make it part of your calendar. Join us for a live quiz regarding Cisco technology, most of it right at the CCNA level. Also on Saturdays at 10 o'clock a.m., there's the office hour, regularly scheduled every Saturday, 10 o'clock a.m. Pacific time in the Discord server. Join us there. And we cover a different topic every single week. And then I might pull an extra, office hour occasionally based on a request, which is also occasional. So I'll bring those up as well. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe. Make it easy to find me. And I wish you the best of success in your CCNA journeys. So that's it for this quiz. I'll see you in the next event.
Something. I've been down the darkest roads and up